Hello, welcome to tutorial number 3. We have a terrain now, we have a character, we have a material on the terrain, we have lighting. Uh, this tutorial might be a little bit longer than the others because we are now going to spawn some rocks and other components into the scene, and we will get them to land perfectly on the ground, and they won't go through it. They won't go too far above it. They'll just work perfectly. For this to work, there are two different ways of doing it. You can use the foliage painter, and whenever you create a foliage object, you drag the foliage into this foliage painter, and then you select the ones that you want to paint at the time. And once you've selected some, you get a paintbrush and you can just draw them or remove them anywhere you want on the scene. You can even place single ones if you've got like some certain trees that need to be in an exact position, or a rock that you want in a very exact position. But for this tutorial, because this is more about procedural generation from the very start tutorial, we want procedural generation for the foliage. To enable that, you have to change an editor setting again. If you go to editor preferences, before I do, I'll just show you. If I right click down here, we get foliage, actor foliage, static mesh foliage, and landscape grass type. But that's all we get. If we go to the editor settings, editor preferences, and search for foliage, there is a tick box here under foliage called procedural foliage. If we tick that, we get an added option under foliage called procedural foliage spawner. That's what we want to use. So I will put that into my content. Don't want it in under third person. I will rename that. We're going to use this to spawn some rocks. So I will call it rock spawner. If you double click the object, you end up with a little prefab blueprint that takes in a random seed, tile size, number of unique tiles, minimum quad tree size, and the foliage types. The foliage types that you add here are similar to the foliage types that you could drop here in the painter. You can use the exact same foliage for both methods. So even after we've generated a bunch of rocks in the scene, we can still add or remove them with this tool as well. So there are two methods of making it making things spawn by default, I guess. In Unreal Engine 5 at this time, there may be even more methods of doing it. I think programmatically you can do it. If you make a blueprint that will do basically similar to what this does, but they've already written this for you, so there's not really much point reinventing the wheel. I have to close this rock spawner now because we don't actually have any foliage in our scene. A foliage type can be made from any object you like, even the third person character mesh. If you really felt like it, you could make this into foliage. Maybe not that one right there because it's a skeletal mesh. No, that would probably still work. But we don't want to spawn a bunch of men in the same. We want to spawn rocks. So Quixel have already provided me a bunch of really nice rocks. I've downloaded a lot in the past, so I will go and grab those now. Quixel bridge. I think I've got a lot downloaded already? Yes, I'll just grab 3. Grab this one, and this one. High quality, they're all downloaded. So all I have to do is hit add. Now I have 3 rocks in the scene. Sorry, 3 rocks in the content area. They're not in the scene yet. If I add a foliage static, static mesh foliage, that's the one, here, and call it, I'll have to name it, to compare to that, name the first one sandstone rock. Oh, wrong one. I almost renamed the wrong thing. Sandstone rock. If I open this, this static mesh foliage will have a lot of settings that are really important to where you would like to spawn the sandstone rock, and a lot of these are minimum and maximum Z offset values. So if you've got a tree that sort of sits on an angle, you don't want the edge of the tree to be seen, so you would put it down into the ground a little bit, just to kind of offset that issue that could occur where people walk up to a tree and they're on a very big angle and they're able to see underneath the tree and see into the mesh. You don't want that. So if you were making a tree that was allowed onto a very steep ground slope angle, you would probably definitely need to put a bit of a minimum and maximum level there for where the tree spawns in. For these rocks, I'm just going to go with minimum of about -10 to -20. Sorry, -20 to -10. I've got the min and max around the wrong way. So the maximum being -10, the rocks will always sit into the ground a little bit, depending on the model you're using or the mesh that you're dragging into this static mesh foliage. The model might not even be 10 units high, so I'm just going to change that. It might be a little bit too much for these. I can't remember how big they are, so I'll go -10 to -5. For the height map, or where we want to spawn them, if you had riverbeds in the map and you had a bunch of little tiny pebbles you need in riverbeds, and the rivers were all sort of at a certain height in the game, then you could specify exactly what height the rivers were at with this minimum and maximum. Then you would only get the rocks spawning in that area. It also has a very, very good advanced area here where, as you create landscape layers, which are possible because we've created the landscape with edit layers enabled, we can add layers later and slowly build up the biomes and the layers that we can include and exclude anything that spawns to. Yeah, so I will grab the sandstone rock mesh, that's the static mesh there, and drag it right there into the mesh area. I'm going to do the same thing and create 3 more sandstone, 3 more rocks. The other 2 are just small sandstones, I think. Yes. So I'll save that one. And I'll create 2 more of these foliages. I can probably just copy and paste twice. Double click that one, go to small sandstone and drag the new material, the new mesh in. And double click that one and drag the other small sandstone in. Then back over here, I save both of these. Um, might want to rename those because they're not sandstone rocks, they're small sandstone. No, number one, sandstone. Number two, I'll make this one number one. Small sandstone one. Now that we have all three rocks that we would like to spawn in the game with the rock spawner, we just open up the rock spawner and drag all of them into instances, into the array that you have in the rock spawner. To get the rock spawner to work, it has to be part of the scene, so you drag it into the scene. One thing about the rock spawner that you will see later is the rock spawner only spawns within this boundary, this cube. If I were to go back into select mode and grab the rock spawner, when you scroll down in the rock spawner, you'll find the procedural foliage settings here. Clicking resimulate will try and spawn the rocks into the scene. Obviously though, this box isn't big enough, so when I click that, it says unable to spawn instances. Ensure there is a large enough volume. Some volumes that you drag into scene, like trigger box, maybe box reflection capture, some of them have a setting called infinite extents, but for some reason they haven't included infinite extents in the rock spawner, so you have to specify exactly where you would like everything to spawn that is a rock. For the example, I'm just going to say place the block, place the bounds of the rock spawner at 0, 0, 0. Then I will change the scale to 4055 by 4055 by 4055. That way it will be exactly the same size as the terrain, the 4055 meters. Now all you have to do is save the project and hit resimulate. This part can take a while because it's running a random algorithm basically to determine exactly where each of these three rocks will spawn onto the surface of this terrain. Another thing that it does is it does have a weight system between each three of these rocks. Here we go. The entire scene is filled with rocks. It is, I think, slowing down a little. I think that's because I have not enabled nanites on these rocks. Oops. You have to always make sure that your character is above the ground after you make modifications to the procedural generation, otherwise you just fall through when you spawn. I'm getting that bad size again. I do not know why that's doing that. I just need to hit play and go in for a second and turn the r dot compiler dot no r dot move that around a little. I cannot remember the one I'm looking for. I cannot remember how to show the FPS, but either way, I think I should be able to escape out of this. I'm sure that these static meshes are not nanite yet, so I will right click on those and enable nanite. They will drop their texture for a short time and then reappear. That's fairly normal. One of the annoying things about trying to put foliage into Unreal Engine as a nanite at the moment, it does not work. So if you try and enable nanites on any foliage, the texture will disappear and not come back. So it's a good idea to not try to attempt that at the moment. If I hit play now, it should be a lot better frame rate. Yes. All the textures are looking fine on these models. They're sitting in the ground, they are shadowed. The last time I made foliage, I found that I didn't have any physics collision on them. That is something that I have to look up because I'm a little bit confused about why that isn't working, because I know that the 3D assets here have a collision, complex collision mesh, don't need it, collision presets, block all. It should be working already. I think turning it into a foliage doesn't really make any difference, but I think in there we have physics overrides. We don't want to override the collision presets. That's no collision. Maybe that could be the concern. I'll change that to block all and see if we get our collision back there. That could be the issue. Save. Block all. Save. Hit play. I think I hit block all in one of the tutorials I was doing the other day, and it did not, it didn't work. It kind of wants to step over it, but I can see it just go, it's stepping over it, but it's like, it's as if it's scaled wrong or something. The foliage says no. But, whoops. Anyway, that's pretty much all you need to know there. I will try and solve this collision problem that I'm having, and I will change the angle of some of these objects to see how to demonstrate how they sort of drop off. So we don't want any of these to spawn unless they're on a slope of about 5 degrees. So all you have to do if you want to implement anything like this is change it, save it, and then you go back to the ROP spawner, tell it to re-simulate, and it will just remove all the ROPs that are there right now and completely do it all again from scratch. It usually doesn't take a very long time. One important thing to note is if you're spawning a hell of a lot of things at once, you've really got to ensure that nanites are enabled before you do it, because the engine can really chuck a wobbly. Now you can see that all three of the rocks are still distributed in a way that that's no one's above the which rock is that? That's a sandstone rock, I think. This one might be that one. Looks like it. Let's see what's going on there. Minus 10, minus 5. Minus 10, minus 5, minus 10, minus 5. Okay. Put that one back up to 5. I guess with all engines, occasionally you end up with a little bit of a glitchy guy like this one. Not sure why that one's sitting above the ground. Everything else seems to be very perfect there. I'll see if I can re-simulate that again and get rid of that terrible rock. I'm just trying to remember before I shut this tutorial off that there's another thing I was going to demonstrate, I think, about the weighting. When you've got three of these in the one scene, or 4 or 5 or as many as you want or as many as you need, if you open up the rock spawner, every one of these in the array should have, no, click, no, click, where's it gone? I think it's, might be in the foliage itself. Nope. Nope. That's for the collision, so they don't stick together. Where is the weight system gone? There is a weight system going, so you can sort of increase or decrease the amount that it spawns on the surface in relation to the other objects. And if you're spawning trees and such, that there is a lot of settings here for density, fall off, collision, clustering, and growth. It's very, very handy if you want sort of a big adult tree. It will spawn a couple of little baby trees around it, and then if you've got them set, you would set the baby tree as a smaller tree that would sort of incorporate all of these settings. You can change where the small trees are going to grow, how far away the small tree can grow to the bigger adult tree, and the distribution seeds, and the maximum age and the maximum initial age of the trees, because you can actually get them to grow as the game progresses, which is a very, very handy tool. I wish I could find this weight system here, but I can't seem to. I might leave the weighting of the spawning of components to a different tutorial once I remember exactly where that is. So that should be all for now. I think if you wanted to make any of these objects destroyable or collectible, so you could sort of hit the rock until it breaks up and then you end up with a rock in your pocket. You can apply different scripts to it, blueprints, and basically just go from there. I will include that kind of thing in a future tutorial, but for now I just thought I'd show you how to spawn some objects onto the scene. I think I've somehow introduced a bug here with this spawn tool, because it's not spawning the way it should at all. But you know what, it's not too much of a problem, always something that you can fix. I think the next tutorial will be um, I'm not sure. I might have to. Oh, it's still there in the air. Get out of the air, silly rock. Uh, yeah, I might have to think about what the next tutorial should be. I can either do layered textures for the material so that we can start generating biomes, um, or I might start doing damageable rocks and such. That might be a good one. I do believe that the third rock that we're generating here is not appearing in the scene. I know why it's not appearing in the scene. It's a very small rock. This one here, I think it's quite small, so the minimum and maximum are not allowing it in. I'll just say 0, 0 and re-simulate, and that should be back in the scene now. That's one thing that you have to look at. You've got to make sure what you're spawning isn't too small to be dropping below those minimum and maximums. Sorry, my voice is a bit funny today. I should make tutorials when I'm less croaky. I haven't been very well. There we go. There's those rocks spawning on the ground. They try to align to the axis when they hit the ground, so you can tell them how far you want that yaw to be, whether you want it to sort of land flat and align with the ground, or if you want it to sort of be flatter or stick in or stick out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I'll just have a quick run around and then I'll end it there. I won't do the fourth tutorial for a couple of hours or so, I guess, because I'd like to look up where the weighting system has gone for the procedural spawner, and I would like to also give myself a little bit of a refresher on layered materials, but in between then and now I will determine which tutorial to go next. And yeah, everything's looking great. I would just like to really quickly change the lighting a little. I want to get those rocks to look really nice. Ah yes, rocks at sunset. Ah, that disappeared for some reason. My capture device, my head. Oh well. You couldn't see my head for half of that, but I guess who wants to see that anyway? Ah, that looks really awesome. I think the next tutorial I might rip out that default environment and everything that was enabled with the inbuilt tools, and I will create one from scratch so that I can get the day-night cycle working, because that would be really nice to watch, sitting here and just watching the day tick on to night time and having a moon with the Milky Way and everything above us. It would be really fun to look at. I think first up though, I've got to figure out why I cannot collide with these, so I better end. I'll go and research that and figure out what's going on there. I'm going to have to mirror my camera so that I don't go, hey, that's the wrong side. See ya.